Welcome to the bold analysis. Public pronouncements by the government handlers who are saying that protests will not bring any change in the country is clearly hurting the masses. And one question that then this begs is what will actually end the protests that are now gripped the country. In this podcast, we are going to demonstrate to you how the pronouncements by Kimani Ichung'wah on these issues of protest and the narrative of linking Rigathi Gachagua to all this is something that is not going to help the situation. And instead of addressing the pertinent issues that are being raised, the state seem to have crafted a narrative of getting anyone, or rather the opposition, to blame for the protest. And I'm going to show you that Kimani Ichung'wah pronouncements are not helping President anymore. President handlers warn more about this. Kindly subscribe to our channel, click the notification bell, and like our videos. And thank you very much for supporting this podcast. We do this each and every day because of your support. Subscription is absolutely free. And when you subscribe to a channel, you'll be getting notifications whenever we publish any video. And you need to subscribe because here we do in-depth political analysis. President's handlers are warning that the statements from the likes of Ichung'wah pushing Rigathi as the hate object amidst the Gen Z-led protests is actually working to the disadvantage of the state and is not going to change and is not going to cool down the tempers. And I saw that recently when the majority leader actually is the force behind Esther Passaris pushing for a legislation on how to tame protest while moving a one-sided narrative of goons taking advantage of the protest instead of also looking at the lives lost during these protests.
Siasa za matusi zinasaidia mtu yeyote? Siasa za kueneza chuki zinakusaidiaje wewe kama mtu wa Mwatate? Zitakusaidia? Muliona wengine wametoka Nairobi. Every center kutoka Nairobi mpaka Mombasa wanasimama kwa center, every center, sio kuwapea agenda yenyu ya maendeleo yenyu. Ni mambo ya siasa za chuki, mambo ya siasa za ukabila, siasa za uchochezi. Wakati waliulizwa agenda yenyu kwa hii safari ya pwani ni gani, wakasema agenda yetu ni Ruto. Tukauliza Ruto amesema anafanya nini? Amekuaje ni agenda kwa wapwani? Ruto ni rais, ni mwanaume, nyinyi ni wanaume pia. Tupeeni agenda yenyu, wachaneni na mwanaume mwingine. Wakasema sijui Ruto siku hizi ameacha majina, tunamuita Kasongo. Sasa matusi ya Ruto inakufaidi wewe? Umeona mwingine mkabila anafika anasema hai, mulisikia nyenga ati hai cousin. Ukifika Ukambani nyai cousin.
When you listen to this Gen Z lady explaining their conviction around the Gen Z protest, you can clearly see the disconnect between the masses and the rulers. And the gap is very huge. The tragedy of this is that no one in the political class seems to be interested in actually listening to the alternative voice, except one narrative. Protests are being funded, and the goons have also been planted to destroy properties. I wanted to get this lady destroying Kimani Ichung'wah statement on the Gen Z.
first of all, something that really pissed me off, it's the way that Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah said, even if we continue protesting and protesting, then nothing will change. He was proudly saying that whatever that we were rejecting in the finance bill, it's the same thing that was brought again and it was passed. He was like, meaning our protest doesn't make sense, as we are really angered by this government. That's why we wake up very early in the morning. Telling someone to wake up from his or her bed to go and protest, he or she is not paid, he or she is very angered. Saying that people are being bought. The way that the MP was saying that these people were being paid to go and burn down the Homa Bay police station. If it was about, they were saying that they were goons. We saw what it happened in Nairobi, CBD, in OTC. Goons were stealing things. In the report that was given, nothing was stolen. If it were goons, the guns were being stolen because those were the things that, nothing was destroyed. It's only burning down the police station. If it were goons, we were saying to tungekuwa tunasikia that they are missing guns, they are missing laptops and equipment that were in the police station. So telling us that these are people who are ferried from Nairobi doesn't make sense. Right. They are just trying to hide things and look like it's a blame game. Telling us it is the way that they were saying during the protest that it is in Thika Road, these are people from Murang'a, Nyandarua, no. I'm a Kikuyu, and I went to the protest because I was angered with this government. Nobody came and gave me 1,000 shillings and told me that go and destroy this and this. No.
And this is what I was actually talking about. We cannot just run smear narrative about everything. And the danger of it is that it is a big blunder to always push it. Gachagua this, Gachagua that. Remember, even in Homa Bay, when a police station was banned, there is a clique of low politicians who've tried to say that goons were ferried from Nairobi to go and ban a police station in Mawego. This clip, or rather this narrative, is deeply entrenched within the government circles. And at this point, this can really be felt. This is a clip of police officer, a senior police officer in Meru, warning the people about all this, and they're talking something on, when you go to protest, you'll be killed, and the issue of destroying goons are not, destroying people's properties are not protest.
Wangwana, mimi nimekuja hapa leo peupe hadharani. Mimi sitaki kuwa na damu mkononi. Sitaki kumwaga damu ya mtu. Na tumejizuia kabisa, tutaki kumwaga damu. Tunataka kutunza wananchi, wewe kufa kifo chako. Kama umeitwa, itika peke yako. Wacha kututafuta ndio useme ya kwamba sisi ndio tumekuangamiza. Kwa sababu wakati unakwenda kwa duka ya mtu, yule mtu amekopa loan, amechukua mkopo, ameweka bidhaa zake pale ndani, anatafutia riziki ili mke wake apate mavazi na apate chakula. Unakwenda unavuruga. Yule bwana anakaa hana chakula, hawezi mnunulia mkewe nguo, wewe unakuja kutuambia ni maandamano ya amani. Hayo ndio maandamano ya amani ambayo yameandikwa kwa katiba. Tuko na uhuru wa kuzungumza katika jamhuri. Badala ya kuzungumza tumegeuka ni matusi. Iko uhuru wa matusi kwa katiba. Tuko na uhuru wa kuabudu ibada mbalimbali msikitini, kanisani, midarani na kila mahali. Lakini wakati ibada zinageuka shakahola, tunaanza kufanya mambo ya ajabu, hiyo uhuru inafika kikomo. Kwa hivyo ndugu zangu, wananchi wapendwa wa Meru, mimi nikiwa kiongozi wenu wa serikali kuu, ninawaomba, ninawatahadharisha ya kwamba vitu vya kuingia kwa maandamano ambayo hawaelewi ni ya nini, na vitu vya kugeuza maandamano kuwa nafasi ya kuiba, vitu vya kugeuza maandamano kuwa nafasi ya kubaka akina wake, vitu ya kugeuza maandamano kuwa ni wakati wa kupiga askari, vitu vya kugeuza maandamano kuwa ni wakati wa kuharibu mali ya serikali na ya umma. Ndugu yangu, mimi nimekuambia, utakuja kujuta, majuto ni mjukuu. Mimi sitishi mtu, ninawaeleza kinaga ubaga, uhuru wa kuandamana upo katika katiba. Lakini mambo mengine tunayoingiza ndani, unaleta njaa zako kwenda kuiba sambusa za watu wa kuvunja hoteli ya wenyewe, hiyo ondoa, kwa sababu hivi karibuni unajipata pabaya.
There is something I always want to understand. It is the responsibility of the security agencies to provide security during these protests. And we saw videos in Nairobi here where people people's properties are being vandalized. The good man, police officer they are talking, is only talking about those goons who go and break into people's shops, those thugs breaking into people's shops. They're talking about the thugs who beat up the police, the thugs who do the other things away from the protest. Do you realize the good man cannot talk about rogue police officers who shoot innocent protesters? He cannot talk about that. And I may need to tell you this. That is the problem. We are focusing on peripheral, and when I say peripheral, someone may think that I'm downplaying the impact of the issue of people's business being destroyed. But when you look at the protest, the issue of goons attacking are peripheral concern only on the side of the state. There is one question that still remains standing tall. And when you listen to Jamila's memo in the news gang on Citizen, yesterday she was actually listing the names of individuals and saying it is not just names of individuals, Kenyans, who were killed, shot by the bullet.
Today we remember them by their names because they are not mere statistics. By their names and not rioters. By their names and not strangers. By their names as sons, daughters, students, brothers, neighbors, Kenyans. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has confirmed the deaths of about 20 individuals during the protest. Again, this brings the total number of lives lost in protests over the past year to more than 80. I will now read their names aloud, not to stir anger, but to honor their memory and remind us all of the cost of ignoring the cries of a generation. These are the names of the protesters who died on June 25, 2025. Samuel Kisesi from Machakos County, Matu. Dennis Njugunangugi from Molo. William Musimi Mutevi from Matu. Ian Mwindi from Juja in Kiambu County. Brian Dungu from Olkalau in Nyandarua. Fred Wamale Wanyonyi, a guard at Stima Plaza in Nairobi. Garrison Mutisia from Emali in Makueni. Peter Makau, also from Emali. Ian Opango from Rongai. Kenneth Oma from Karatina. Joseph Ndonga from Nyeri Town. David Mwangi Karanja from Villa Imara in Nairobi. Teddy Dan Owino from Juja in Kiambu. Kevin Njau from Kikuyu. Sami Gitau from Mwihoko. Moses Mwangi Kabura from Nairobi. Abdul Juma Okelo from Pipeline, Nairobi. And there are those whose names we do not yet know, whose families may still be searching, still waiting for answers. We honor them too. We have an identified person from Eldoret and another one from Nyeri in Karatina. We also have someone from Nyeri town who has not been identified. And then there's Boniface Kariuki, shot by a police officer as he sold face masks in the streets of Nairobi. He wasn't protesting. He was working, trying to earn a living. The incident captured on video shocked the country. After 2 surgeries and days in the ICU, Boniface was declared brain dead. He died soon after. Boniface wasn't part of the demonstration, but he is part of the story. These names now live in our national memory. They were not collateral damage. They were not in the wrong place at the wrong time. They were in their country, asking to be heard. We owe them more than a moment of silence. We owe them the courage to ask hard questions and the will to demand answers.
Shot and killed. When you listen to this memo, this is a problem. And I can tell you that the Chungwas and the camp have only formed two narratives. The Rigathi Gachagua camp is funding protests, and they are paying goons to destroy properties. And I like when Matiang'i asks, if you know all this, why have you done the necessary? Why haven't you done the necessary? This, from that Jamila's memo, you will understand that the state is only talking about one thing. About wenye wanauza sijui samosa zao zimejibiwa, wenye wanauza manguo. Can you compare that to someone who has been killed? Sambusa, and I'm not justifying that is right, but in the scale, comparing the two in a scale, can you return back life lost? Can you return back life lost? And this is why the young people are seeing the state as being tone deaf. You cannot return life lost, and you must get it really right. Do you know that Ichung'was and the team spends more time and their energy, the president, I'm picking it because he's leading the President's Defense Battalion. The President's Defense Battalion in the public court are talking more about Rigathi Gachagua. In fact, the team that is moving with millions, Kindiki, Rigathi and that team moving with millions from one county to the other, that team is only there to counter Rigathi Gachagua's one term. And probably women are supposed to be given money, then they chant 2 terms. Given money, then they chant 2 terms. But they are not helping. Remember, the Gen Zs themselves, they are saying, Rigathi Gachagua is not one of us. Themselves, they are disassociating with Rigathi, while the state is pushing very hard to associate them with Rigathi Gachagua. And you know the objective? The objective of associating them with Rigathi Gachagua is simply to try to divide the movement. Because Raila Odinga's broad-based, and that is why you see Raila Odinga's broad-based team are so keen on pushing Kikuyu Luo hate acrimony. That is done by a clique of Luo Mps. And then Kimani Ichung'wa are out there to portray that Rigathi is the mastermind of the Gen Z protest. So why that is being done is to divide it so that it loses its course. And this is something I've always been saying in this podcast, and I will not tire, I will still repeat. You cannot insulate the state. The state cannot immunize itself from the grave concerns that the young people are raising, or not even the young people, let me say Kenyans are raising, by, by that divide and rule scheme. It is a temporary measure. For now, you can be able to get people divided here and there. But the country need to learn that when a concern is emerging, as even that of the death of Ojwang, it doesn't know any tribe. And you cannot insulate yourself from public scrutiny using the tribal shield, the name calling, the divide and rule. It is not going to work. And I have 3 reasons to explain to you why the Ichung'wa's combative propaganda against the protests can't help William Ruto at the moment. It cannot help. And ask me why. Because that is what I want to explain in the next 3 minutes, so that I can be out of your way. People feel the government is tone deaf on justice. The June 25th protest, there is no doubt that the call for the protest was showing dissatisfaction with the accountability they are remembering, and at the same time saying the president has this has continued. Violation of human rights has continued even after the June last year protests. And you know why? You know something why I'm saying this is laughable. There is a June 2026 coming. There is a June 2025. The J25 2026 is coming. J25 2027 is coming. If you still sugarcoat this and try to insulate yourself using the tribal shield, you're lying to yourself. You're lying to yourself. And now you can maneuver away saying regard this, but then you realize that regard is not in ballot. Ichung'wa profiling people from Gema that were probably paid and funded for this protest. I want to ask, how does that bring the votes for the president? Okay. I know he's saying it only outside Mount Kenya. When he goes to Mount Kenya, he doesn't say that. But the question that then the observers are asking, how is that resonating with the Mount Kenya voter? Because as you say that, there is a trend of people from Kikuyu Nation are the ones that are being rounded up, ducked. And it seems to be a very intentional move. So Ichung'wa profiling people from Mount Kenya to be the ones that are doing this and that, how is it bringing more vote? In fact, it is even annoying the voters. If you look at what Rigathi is saying. Status quo manufactures more rage without asking the problem. What exactly is the problem? And I want to tell you, we have a big problem. You know what? Even today, the political class must be very careful. Even today, if the president is to leave, Ruto is to leave State House, whoever will occupy that State House next will have the most difficult job in this country. And that will be telling the young people that look here, we are going to give you jobs. We have a more complex problem. And if you talk about dialogue, you must make people to understand. The politicians must make deliberate moves. Now I saw a story that the president is building a church 1.2 billion, worth 1.2 billion around State House. It is not rocket science to believe that that is taxpayers' money. And people are asking, with our taxpayers' money? We're just having more. And I can tell you, that story has come now at a time. I don't want to attack it because I still don't have the full details. But when we have the full details, that's a story I'm following here closely. You're going to see how that will play out. And it's a very interesting one. If we are spending taxpayers' money, 1.2 billion to build a church in State House, just saying building a church in State House is bad. Lakini maswali ni mengi, tuonane bana.